I just felt like I was doing everything wrong. Man, that is a heavy, heartbreaking sentence, isn't it? Like, it's the kind of profound, raw vulnerability you totally expect to hear in an intense therapy session, or maybe read in some dense psychology textbook. But what if I told you this line actually comes from a children's cartoon? Yeah, you heard me right. A cartoon about a family of Australian blue heeler dogs, to be exact.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are decoding the surprisingly deep, incredibly relatable life lessons hidden within the acclaimed animated show, Bluey. Look, if you're sitting there thinking this is just some colorful distraction meant to keep toddlers glued to a screen for 20 minutes, you are about to see a completely different side of the story. Through some seriously brilliant storytelling, this show tackles the absolute core anxieties of growing up and, honestly, the even bigger anxieties of raising the kids who are growing up.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the parenting comparison trap. All right, let's dive right into this incredibly universal experience, which is captured flawlessly in an episode called Baby Race. So we see the mom, Chili, looking back on when Bluey was just a tiny baby. She's navigating those chaotic early days where, let's be real, every single tiny movement feels like a direct reflection of your worth as a parent. We're talking about standard baby milestones here: rolling over, sitting up, crawling, pulling up on furniture. But for Chili, these didn't feel like a natural progression at all. No, they turned into an absolute race. She watched, basically sick with anxiety, as another baby in her mother's group just zoomed past Bluey. When that other baby started pulling up on furniture, Bluey was still stuck on what they affectionately call bum shuffling. And just like that, a totally normal biological timeline morphs into a high-stakes competitive sport. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates the harsh disconnect between cold, hard medical reality and a parent's internal, spiraling panic. Think about it. A doctor can sit there and provide calm, factual reassurance saying, hey, some babies just bum shuffle, it's absolutely nothing to worry about. But a parent's internal dialogue? Oh, it is often entirely different. Chili looks at her kid and her brain screams, you are definitely not winning the baby race. She even tries all these frantic, desperate interventions to literally force Bluey to crawl instead of shuffle. It is just a perfect encapsulation of how heavy societal pressure can completely override logical, expert reassurance. Now, if Chili represents the anxiety of hitting those milestones, the dad, Bandit, well, he represents the intense challenge of building resilience. In the obstacle course episode, we get a front row seat to a totally different kind of pressure. Bandit looks right at Bluey and outright tells her, I don't let you win just because you're a kid. Boom. So here are Bandit's rules. He firmly insists that letting kids win artificially just stunts their resilience. As the kids are racing through this intense backyard obstacle course, Bluey decides to cut corners. She cheats. And Bandit, he immediately calls her out on it. No hesitation. His philosophy is super rigid here. If you let kids win without putting in the actual effort, they literally never learn to try to play better. Cheaters never advance. It is straight-up tough love, purposely designed to teach his daughter that genuine improvement requires actual practice and, total honesty. But here's the thing, Bandit isn't perfect either, right? His own competitive tension totally boils over. The resolution to all this, though, is fantastic. They actually set aside the crazy physical obstacle course to play a fair, quiet game of matching cards called Memory Snap. And guess what happens? The younger sister, Bingo, who definitely isn't the fastest runner out in the yard, completely dominates and wins the memory game. It so beautifully shows the whole family that different skills shine in different arenas, and that playing fair always, always trumps cheating, no matter what game you're playing. Moving right along, let's jump into Section 2, the beauty of imperfection. This intense pressure to perform doesn't just stay magically contained with the parents. Kids absolutely internalize it too, and deeply. In an episode called Perfect, Bluey sets this unbelievably high goal for herself. She wants to draw a very, 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 very good perfect Father's Day picture for Bandit. But her reality? Well, the lines are crooked. The sofa she drew, it doesn't look like a sofa at all. It looks like a chair. She gets so incredibly frustrated that she actually ends up tearing up her own work, all because she just can't execute her vision flawlessly. Out of pure frustration, she draws a boomerang instead, basically driving herself absolutely crazy, chasing this totally impossible standard of perfection. But then the crucial intervention happens, and it comes from Chili. She steps in and offers this absolutely vital reassurance, telling her, it doesn't need to be perfect. Dad will love every picture of yours. It's such a powerful grounding moment. It shifts the focus entirely away from the final output and puts it right onto the intention.
The effort, the thought, and the sheer love behind the drawing matters so much more than whether the lines are perfectly straight. And then Bandit wraps up this lesson perfectly. He reminds Bluey that when they play rough games outside and she scrapes her knee, she bounces right back. She is physically tough. So he tells her that drawing a picture is tough too. But, and this is the key, it is a very, very good thing that she is tough enough to handle it. The narrative shifts completely here. It goes from demanding absolute perfection to valuing resilience. It's about having the grit to handle your own mistakes and just keep creating anyway. All right, let's get into Section 3, dealing with growing pains. Because growing up isn't just about learning cool new skills, is it? It's also about the really bittersweet process of leaving comfortable things behind. In this storyline, the girls finally decide it is time to have their own rooms. So Bluey moves out and Bingo stays in the original room. Now initially, there's this massive rush of independence and excitement, but as night falls, wow, that feeling quickly mixes with a sharp anxiety of separation. The shared bedroom space right in the middle suddenly feels vast and super empty to them. They actually resort to communicating through little notes and even sneaking into the hallway to leave their comforting stuffed toys, Gloria and Malcolm, for each other. They do it just to simulate that shared presence they are missing so deeply. When Bandit finds them and asks why someone is crying over a room, the response they give is just incredibly mature. It's not because of the room, it's because of the memories attached to it. I mean, wow. This perfectly grounds the emotional reality of childhood transitions. Growing up literally requires us to physically move on, to claim our own independence in our own space. But it is entirely normal and profoundly human to feel a deep, aching longing and nostalgia for the comfort and the closeness that we are leaving behind. Which brings us to our final core theme, Section 4, running your own race. So how in the world do we reconcile all these crazy pressures? The parenting milestones, the endless demand for perfection, the heavy emotional weight of growing pains? Well, let's go back to the baby race episode for a second. Chili is completely at her wit's end, right? She's feeling like a total failure because Bluey isn't walking yet. But then, a veteran mother named Bella, who by the way happens to have 8 children, visits Chili's messy house. Chili instantly braces for judgment, but instead, Bella just looks at her, smiles, and simply says, "You must have learned a thing or two. You're doing great." It literally brings Chili to happy tears. It is the exact, pure, unfiltered validation that she so desperately needed to hear. Honestly, the absolute most profound lesson we can extract from all of these struggles is the conscious decision to just run your own race. What does that mean? It means actively letting go of external benchmarks. It means ignoring what the neighbors are doing, ignoring what the random mothers groups on Facebook are saying, and focusing entirely on your own personal growth and your own unique timeline. And the way the show proves this concept and its final moments is nothing short of brilliant. After Chili finally lets go of her crushing anxiety and stops trying to force the issue, Bluey takes her very first steps in the kitchen. And here's the kicker. She doesn't walk to beat judo in some race. She doesn't walk because her parents forced her little knees into it. No, she takes her first steps entirely on her own terms, quite simply because she saw something she wanted across the room and decided she was finally ready to go get it. Look, we all have baby races in our adult lives, don't we? Whether it's our careers, our relationships, or hitting those arbitrary personal milestones by a certain age. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct question. Where in your life do you need to stop comparing yourself to others, embrace your own unique, messy journey, and finally start running your own race? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.